Alright, this video is going to show a modification I'm making to the sawmill. Basically, I'm going to make the legs longer. You can see the stock legs here, which are about 6'7" long or so. And these over here that I had made, they're 10 feet long. I only wanted them 8 feet, but the guy made them 10 feet, so I'm going to try it and see how it works out. If it doesn't, or they're too long or too cumbersome to carry around, then I will have him cut the 2 feet off and I'll redo that part. The reason I am doing this is because the legs as they are, they're limited in the size of log that you can double cut. The M6 is, really designed for smaller logs, particularly in double cutting, if that's what you're wanting to do. But the first two logs I got were 36 inches and like 33 inches. And the next two logs I have waiting are 33 and 40 inches. And so if I want to double cut, I needed to be able to crank the mill over farther to get on the other side of the log so I could work my way back and do the double cutting. Well, the 6'7" legs just didn't do that unless you actually moved the mill or moved the log, but then things would get misaligned. So I just decided to have these legs made. If you saw my other video with the plates for the horizontal guard, I had the same guy make these just here locally. The tubes are 65 millimeter by 65 millimeter, but which is roughly around 2 5/8. But here in the U.S., all I could get was 2 1/2. So you notice that these have, play in them anyway. So I'll have a little more play, but I have an idea that will take up some of that slack when I put it on these smaller tubes. So I will show that. So I'm not going to, of course, record the whole video showing everything. I did buy some extra chain that I will splice onto the chain that I got so that it can reach this new length. So other than that, I'll record videos and little snippets here and there as I go along. Okay, I wanted to show you the next step that I had to do. The old tubes, which were 65 millimeter, is like 2 5/8. And all I could get was 2 1/2 without spending a bunch of money. The 2 1/2 was the cheaper. So what I had to do was I bought a sheet of nylon. It's an 1/8 inch thick, and I glued it, epoxied it to the inside of the post. This will keep the gap between the nylon and the frame here. It'll keep it the same 1/8 inch as it was with the 2 5/8 tube, but since I have 2 1/2, then I use this. So, and this is nylon, it's very slick, so it shouldn't cause any friction or anything and may actually help. But that was the next step I did, was epoxy that on. And now you can see that I got the skids put back on in the post. Everything is bolted to the feet. You can see the post here with that nylon. It still moves just about as much as it did when I was using the 65 millimeter tubes. So that is acting the same, so it should mill the same and do what it's intended. So the next step will be making the chain a little longer. All right, the next step was to lengthen the chain. So I did that with that chain I showed earlier in the video. I spliced it together with the old chain and just used it So the one thing that I realized was with these 10-foot long skids, they're made out of 2.5 by 2.5, and they're either 3/16 or a quarter. I'm not sure which you use, but they're really heavy. So I lost the portability a little bit with this, unless you just have two people all the time. So I wanted to add the portability back. So I had to figure out what I needed to do and what I wanted to take apart to do that. So I'm going to try to show you what I did to accommodate the portability so I could still lift it and move it around by myself. All right, the first thing I have to do is loosen the chain. So not that big of a deal. So that I can come down here and get this chain off of this and then get it off of the crank. And then I just take the chain off. So what I'm really trying to do is remove this post so that this is easier to handle. So the next thing I have to do is remove this ruler stop, get the ruler out of there, and then just slide this back on. So not that big of a deal. But the next thing I did was these bolts here, they were bolted in here. And with the old mill, when I lifted up on the post, that's what was hitting the tube and allowing you to lift it. So I didn't want to undo those bolts all the time. So as you can see, I bought these hitch pins. So all I have to do after I loosen the chain and get it off is remove these hitch pins. There's one on each side where those bolts were. And then I can just lift the post off by itself. So what I'm going to do is wrap that chain up and secure it to the tube with some Velcro, just to allow for carrying, and then carry the post separately. So this allows me to not take the mill apart so far that it takes a lot of time to put it back together, but it still allows me to carry the 10-foot legs separately and have them to be easier to maneuver in and around things, and just makes it lighter so I can carry all this by myself. So while I did lose some portability because of it, it probably in the end actually makes it easier because things are a little more broken down. So it's just the reverse to get the legs back on there. And then you just rewrap the chain like it was on there before. Don't know if I can do this side one-handed, but it's easy enough. And then put the ruler guide back through and tighten it back up, and it's all set up. So I may even have done these hitch pins in the end with the old one just to make it lighter, because you know they're not doing anything except when you lift it and when I was carrying it around. So and these hitch pins, you know, usually pretty strong. So I think that'll cover it for using the 2.5 tubes that are 10 foot longer, or 10 foot long, I should say. But I did have to make a couple of adjustments and work around some stuff. But overall, it wasn't bad. And the next trees that I have that are larger in size, I won't have to do any log or mill moving. So this should go pretty good. So thanks for watching.